Hi everyone, Dr. Alex Ritzy here, and just a quick interlude before our hip mobility part 2 routine that would be a great thing to incorporate 3 to 4 times in your weekly routine if you want your hips to feel looser, be stronger, perform better in sport and in life, and make sure your spine is healthy. If you haven't watched Hip Mobility Routine Part 1, you should definitely go back and do that. It is, a requirement that you're able to do those drills comfortably from that first video, so I'll make sure that is linked to this one. And this is just a couple of quick tips before we get into these mobility drills. Number one, these are pretty hard. They are challenging if you find them tough. Do not feel overwhelmed by them. Slowly take it through. With all of these, the key is to be nice and soft through the body, and that's where we're going to focus on making sure that with all of these, we're taking nice, easy breaths down into our belly, making sure that we take air down through the lungs, and when we breathe in, the entire belly expands, and the chest stays nice and calm, taking as much air as you can. That's going to allow you to deepen these stretches and these positions to improve your mobility. Beyond breathing, another really important thing is less is more. I don't think you need to spend 30 to 60 minutes doing these in a particular day. It would be much more advantageous to spend 5 or 10 minutes a day over many days, and I think that's going to bring you more gains. That's why with so much of the content I'm releasing now, we're talking about rituals and routines, because it is the daily brick building, the daily rituals that are going to lead us in the direction we want to go towards our goals, whether it is health or otherwise. And if we can find rituals that allow us to be consistent, that is going to give our body and our brains the signal that is needed to induce changes. Your body is an amazing self-healing adaptive machine, and you can mold it any way that you like, but it needs the proper signals, and if you deliver that every day or as many times a week as possible, you're going to find your gains are going to be much, much better. A couple other things with these drills: if you can't get into the position that I am in, that's okay. Use some sort of yoga brick, a pillow, a towel, whatever it is, to raise your body or put your body into a safer position. For instance, when you're down into the mobility position on your forearms, if you can't get your forearms to the ground, that's okay. Bring the ground up to you. Use a pillow, a brick, anything that you can to raise those arms up and allow you to achieve that position without taxing your body so much that it's going to be tight just trying to reach there. Again, the key with these, nice and soft and easy. In terms of discomfort level, it should probably fall in a 3 to 7 range. Anything higher than that, it's not going to be useful because your body's going to be too tense. And anything less than that, 3, probably not pushing yourself hard enough to meet any or to reach any of those gains. So, without further ado, guys, here are those mobility drills that I am doing regularly as part of my routine to make sure that my hips stay healthy so that they, like the rest of my body, never holds me back from doing what I want. Enjoy. Just a few tips to help you guys with these mobility drills. As you can see with this first one, my left hand is planted on my foot. And the idea with this, I want to keep my foot, my right hand, and the right leg always planted with the ground. Here I'm trying to keep a fairly neutral spine without too much of an arch, and I'm rocking back and forth through the hip joints. Everything stays in contact with the floor. All of the movement is coming from the hip joints as I rock back and forth, sometimes quickly, sometimes hanging out on the hip, spending a bit more time to deepen that stretch. You'll get a better view here from the front, seeing that shift from side to side comes through the hip joints, putting a little bit of lateral pressure on the knee that should not hurt you. If it does, see a professional, but that there's very little movement in the hands and in the shins. All is coming through the hips as I rock back and forth with the hip joint. This next position, it's tough to get down into. If you can't do it, put a pillow or some sort of elevated block so the forearms have something to rest on. Again, we're trying to keep the spine fairly neutral, bending as much forward through the hip as we can, rocking back and forth, keeping the shin, the left foot, and both forearms against the ground or your pillow.
after you've had enough about rocking back and forth, you're going to try and make some circles in a clockwise and counterclockwise direction through your buttock. Imagine like you're drawing that clock arm going from 12 clockwise around back and vice versa counterclockwise. You'll get a better view of it in this view after I'm done rocking back and forth, keeping those forearms again against the ground as best I can. And here you can see that clockwise, and in this case counterclockwise roll that I'm trying to do. And that's really just going to improve the movement through that hip, ball, and socket joint. The next progression is with the left hand. In this case, we're going to reach as far away from the body as we can. And what you'll see if you rewind here is I took 4 or 3 huge big breaths into my belly, breathing in, and then releasing nice and slowly. Again, you'll get a better view here. You can see everything raising up through my chest and my abdomen as I breathe down into the belly. And then as I relax, you'll see I'm actually able to move that hand farther and farther away, allowing to increase the stretch or the movement through the hip joints. The next progression is we're going to plant the outside hand away from the planted foot, reaching up towards the ceiling. The key here, hand high, huge breaths in, down, drawing into the hips and the belly, and then blowing out and pushing that stretch even farther. 3 big breaths towards 12 o'clock, and then bringing that hand through, threading the needle underneath the other one, and we're going to again take 3 big breaths there. Again, you'll see here with the breath, it allows me when I relax and release it to go even farther while keeping everything planted, deepening that stretch. And then when I bring the hand through, you're going to see that with each successive release of breath, I am able to bring that stretch a little bit farther. Big breath in, and then just deepen that stretch. This next progression you're going to love if you are having issues with your low back or sciatic nerve. This is kind of a flossing technique where we bring the hips forward and back. Again, keeping the toes as much planted on the ground as we can. You'll probably feel a very good stretch in through the shin here. Bringing the hip forward and back, trying to straighten the knee as much as you possibly can without forcing it too much, making sure you don't get any zingers or any sciatic nerve referral down through that leg, forward and backward, toes planted on the ground. In one of our last progressions, we're going to work on flossing that sciatic nerve, messing around with keeping the same position, and then plantar flexing and dorsiflexing the foot up and down. And then you can get a real good floss when the toes come up, head comes back, toes go down, head goes forward. That's going to really work to floss the sciatic nerve from the low back and down through the entire leg. In some research studies, getting upwards of a couple centimeters of movement of that sciatic nerve flossing through some potential adhesions or obstructions. The key with this one is to not do too much at once. Try to either just plantar flex or dorsiflex the foot, or do it with the hand, do it with the head. In this progression, this is all about the hip flexors and stretching them out. We are going to squeeze the glute, bringing it in, tightening that butt cheek, and then outwards, moving it back. And this is going to just move that hip into flexion and extension. The key here is to push the leg down into the ground with the quad. So the back leg, you're pushing into the ground. In this case, it's my left leg. I'm pushing it down into the ground. And I'm also squeezing the buttock or the glute to maximize that hip extension.